Hi, in this video, I'll talk to you about referencing and using AI with academic integrity in your assignments. So firstly, what is academic integrity? Academic integrity means that you are using and communicating information in your assignments in an ethical and responsible manner. Plagiarism, on the other hand, involves using someone else's work and pretending that it is your own, and this is considered academic fraud. So, for you to be able to demonstrate academic integrity, you need to always distinguish between your work and the work of someone or something else. To do this effectively, you need to understand citing and referencing requirements for your particular faculty. You need to summarize and paraphrase ideas properly, and you need to develop strong and accurate note-taking skills so that you don't by accident plagiarize because you thought it was your own idea, but actually it came from a source. Finally, good time management and planning is there because if you're doing your assignment the night before it's due, you have much less time to think about these things. As a result, you are more likely to plagiarize by accident. So plagiarism can be intentional or unintentional. Intentional would be, of course, purposely going out there and stealing someone else's ideas and pretending that it's your own, which is obviously considered very serious academic fraud. Most of the time, though, I see students unintentionally plagiarizing, and this happens because they do not understand academic integrity practices. They maybe forget to put a reference in, or they put the reference in the wrong place, for example, and this can lead to unintentional plagiarism. It is also important to note that you can self-plagiarize. A good example of this is if you were doing your assignment in your first year and you did reasonably well, and then in second year you got a similar sort of topic and you kind of reuse that first year assignment, that would be considered self-plagiarism. And in another video, I talk in more detail about what that is. Other types of academic fraud at our institution also includes cheating, collusion or unauthorized collaboration with others, breach of assessment requirements, and research misconduct. So how do you then reference with academic integrity? So firstly, it's important to realize that you reference not just so that you avoid plagiarism, you reference because it is the evidence for the claims you are making. And I talk a lot about this in some other videos in my channel. It is also important to note that when you reference effectively, it helps others find the information you have used because the in-text reference counts like a shortcut to the reference list, which provides the full details about what you used, and then they can go and look it up and read it themselves. And it also shows respect for other people's work, which is an important component of acting with integrity. So what should you reference? If you are to reference something with academic integrity, it means you need to distinguish between your work and the work of someone else, right? So that means anything that is not entirely your own work needs to be referenced. This includes direct quotes, paraphrases, summaries, ideas, theories, concepts, definitions, images, tables, etc. Anything that is not entirely your own idea. So for example, if you were talking about your childhood and something that you experienced, obviously, this is not something that comes from a source. This comes from your own experience and would not need to be referenced. But if you are talking about an idea that you read in a paper, that comes from somewhere else and would need to be referenced. In the Faculty of Education, we use the APA 7th style of referencing, and so you should make sure that you know how to reference that appropriately. If you are in another faculty, make sure to also check their referencing requirements because each faculty usually has their own special style in which they like their referencing done. So you can quote, paraphrase, and summarize in your assignment. Quoting is using someone else's direct words in quote marks and with a reference at the end. In the APA style, you also require page numbers for direct quotes. Paraphrases means using someone else's ideas but presenting it in your own words and sentence structure, still including the reference because it's not your idea, it's someone else's. Summarizing means using someone else's idea but presenting it in your own words for a whole section. So for example, instead of trying to focus on the individual sentences from the article, you're focusing on a whole section, maybe a whole chapter of a book, maybe the entire article that you have read. Still, you use your citation at the end because it is still not your own idea. So as an example, this is an example of a direct quote where the blue text at the top has been quoted directly at the bottom with quote marks, and you can see the reference at the end. And as I said before, in the APA 7th style, including a page number for direct quotes. This is an example of a paraphrase. You can see the idea is the same as the original source, but it's presented in my own words and my own sentence structure, still including the reference at the end. And this is an example of summarizing. In this case, the key point from the article at the top has been presented in the sentence at the bottom. Now, in different set of videos, I talk about the actual formatting requirements of each of the APA 7 style of referencing. So how you do in-text citations, reference lists, and all of the entries in the reference list. If that is the style that you need to use in your assignment, make sure to check those out in my channel. So then I titled this topic using referencing and using AI with academic integrity. So how do you use AI with academic integrity? It is important to note that you can use AI in your assignments in most of the units in our faculty and in our university more generally. But you do need to know that AI literacy is essential. You should be using generative AI to help elevate your work, not to do the work for you. And you also need to acknowledge it ethically. So firstly, AI literacy consists of multiple dimensions. It does have that foundational requirement of knowing where to find, for example, ChatGPT or Gemini, log in and ask it a question. You do need conceptual understanding, like what to do with the data that you get out of it when it responds to you. But for you to actually be AI literate, you need to move beyond these basic functions, which are the same as with any other computer program, right? In this case, you need to move beyond that to understanding that there is a social dimension with acting with AI. And it is when you start understanding that it can become a collaborative thinking partner, which helps you to support your own reflection, creativity, and critical thinking. That is when you can actually start to use it well. There is also an ethical dimension, understanding the ethical requirements and the ethical implications of using or not using AI, and an emotional dimension, because our emotions underpin how we engage with technology. And for example, if you are scared that the robots are going to take over the world, you are probably a little bit hesitant to use AI. So understanding your emotional reactions and how that influences your choices is an important component of AI literacy. Now, I have a whole extra class that talks about AI literacy and how you can use AI in your work. So make sure that if that is something that you would like to know more about, you go out and check my AI literacy masterclass video. What is important in this assignment video is to understand that in your assignments, you should acknowledge AI if you use it. Just like the reference was indicating someone else's idea, the AI acknowledgement acts as an acknowledging something else's idea. And this is something I said right at the start. Academic integrity is distinguishing between your ideas and the ideas of someone or something else. So by acknowledging the AI, you are acknowledging how it was that collaborative thinking partner for you. Now, this is a good strategy in terms of how to format the AI acknowledgement. Start by having a clear explanation of the AI that you used, details of what you used it, and depending on what you used it for, sometimes that can also include the prompts you used. A clarification about how you adapted any of the output that it gave you. And finally, a statement of responsibility, because you as the human have the ultimate authority over what is in that assignment. So if you're going to use it in your assignment, you need to take responsibility for the accuracy of that work. So this is an example of that. I acknowledge that I used ChatGPT, and you'll notice that it includes the company name of who made this AI and the website. And for what did you do? Maybe to refine your phrasing and to reduce your word count, and then talk about how it was adapted to reflect your own style and voice in this case. And then the sentence at the end, you'll notice, is that statement of responsibility. I take full responsibility for the final content, and it reflects my own scholarly intent. This is what I wanted, not just what the AI told me. This is the one that I use in my writing these days. So I talk about Gemini in this case. So I acknowledge that I use Gemini, and you can see Google with the Gemini link there to do it for many things. In my case, I use it as a critical friend and copy editor because I'm seeing it as that social partner helping me refine my work. The sentence after this is an example of what you would include if you got the AI to help you create images for your assignments. So in this case, Gemini Nano Banana was used to collaboratively co-create the figure. And then you can see, same thing, the suggestions were adapted in the following ways, and I take full responsibility for the final content, noting it represents my original ideas and adheres to academic integrity and quality requirements. In essence, this is saying I used it to help me make my work better, but I take responsibility for it. This is what I think.